All right, well, thanks everybody for showing up, taking time out from your lunch hour. Actually, know some of you from before, so that was great. So welcome to Trust Talk, Lunch and Learn. I'm Dan Shuart. I have a company called Global Straticom. We have a kind of an arm of Global Straticom called Personify Solutions, and that is really about digital strategy consulting. So we work with a lot of companies, a lot of clients on building their digital strategy. We do some hands-on stuff, but it's mainly on the strategic side. And part of that is analytics, which we'll be talking about today. So I think that you guys have done a lot of meeting each other. So, but what I would like to do is go around the room and just have you introduce yourself. Sorry, catch you in the middle of lunch, but introduce yourself and then who you work for, kind of your role. And then if you have any comments or thoughts on data analytics for sales, I'd love for you to share. Also, I hate making these things about giving you a PowerPoint slide dump, 100 slides, but jump in. If you have been there, done that, have an idea, thoughts, something you've experienced, please share it with us. Yeah, I hate when these are all about me talking. So anyway, if you want to start. Global Straticom, we really deal with digital strategy. So I'll rely on the IT guys in the room to backfill with some of this stuff. And again, anybody else that has comments, please jump in. But I'll keep it at more on the sales and marketing side of the discussion. We usually like to go into an organization and talk business before technology. I get a lot of people asking about certain technologies, and it's really best to talk about business challenges. And today we're talking about sales, marketing challenges you might have, and how analytics may be able to fill that gap in there. So, but feel free again to interject as we go. All right, so takeaways for today. Yeah, it's really important. We do a 1 and 2 day all-in data analytics in different areas of the company, but a lot of times for sales and marketing. So this is a subset. I condensed it down to an hour and a half. So I packed a lot of stuff in an hour and a half. In fact, I think I have more than an hour and a half worth of content. So I will keep it short. I may have to skip over some stuff, but at least you'll have it. You have a slide deck printed in front of you. It's yours. Take notes on it. And if we want to come back and visit some stuff that I went over quickly, then I'll be around afterward. And of course, you can contact me as well. So with that in mind, what I'd like for you guys to have put in your pocket when you leave are some key analytics, some key ideas around analytics for I'm going to be using an example today for prospecting. So I know in the insurance business, you guys, and even in the service provisioning, you do prospecting, right? And so this is usually a hurdle for a lot of companies, a lot of sales teams, a lot of marketing teams, that initial prospecting and that. So I'm going to use that as an example. But again, you can apply it in many different ways. How to incorporate analytics into your sales process, right? I have a little different vantage point on that than most folks do. And then if you're into coaching, if you coach other salespeople on your team, then we'll talk a little bit about that. But it doesn't really matter what your role is. It's applicable across the board. And then identifying key analytics for your company, regardless of the company size. What are the key drivers? What are the key data points you need to be looking at and evaluating? And it's usually around where your hurdle is. Where's your bottleneck? What's holding you back? You want to really dive in. What's the analytics behind that? We'll talk about how to tweak that out. And then catching those problems and fixing them, and then sort of a measuring your success and reiterating. A lot of people use analytics just as like a report or data, right? Well, you need to be buried in it. You need to take that then and go back and look at it and go, okay, what can we change? And then measure that again, come back and say, did that change work? And this, I know you guys think this in marketing, as you tweak your marketing approach, but we're going to really apply analytics directly to that. So hopefully you'll get some background on some of these things as we go forward. But what I want to do is lay a little bit of a foundation on this and the life cycle and the history of the sales process. Dating myself, back in the 80s, it was really relationship only. And I'm talking kind of like what we were saying. We're talking pre-voicemail, pre-email, right? So it was really all relationship. You would know somebody and you would go sell to that person you knew that you met somewhere. And customer longevity was a much bigger thing back there. You might buy from an individual and you would buy from that person for years and years and years, right? Because you didn't have the bandwidth to find out who the other competitors. You couldn't go really beyond your boundaries. So it was all relationship. Now that didn't get replaced, it just got built upon by, in the 90s, solution selling. In fact, I used to teach a course on this. I was CIO for a company, and I got so tired of salespeople coming in and doing just a what I call a data dump. I mean, they would shotgun approach. They would tell me everything their company did, and it'd be an hour-long presentation. Never once would they ask me what I needed. Sure. You know, what were my business issues? And it's common today, right? We know to do that now. But back then, that was a relatively new thing of really going in and not talk about your product at all in the beginning, just find out what the pain points were, right? So they built a whole thing around the solution selling concept through the 90s. And then in 2000s, again, up till now, CRM. So customer relationship management. I'm sure most of you have heard that term, right? This idea of the full 360 view of the customer. Everything we can find out about future prospects all the way to customers that we've had for a long time. Know their habits, know what they bought last, know the last problem that they encountered. Everything you can know. We want to put that somewhere and be able to track that and have better relationships with our customers going forward. So they started to collect all this information, put it in some bucket that they could use. Well, what happened is that they had all this data, mass amounts of data, and they knew that there was good, possibly even revenue hidden in that data, right? So you started this whole idea of data analytics, really mining the data you have. And the interesting thing that came out of that is that looking at data as an asset. The data you have, the data you collect, is your data, right? Probably unique in some way to your competitors, and it's an asset, just like your building, just like your trucks, whatever your inventory is, that is an asset. And you can monetize that asset, right? You can glean profit. You can glean cost savings from it. Some companies even take it, they abstract it, and they resell it to somebody else because the data they collected is so unique. So this whole view of data has changed. I think we're just at the forefront. It's really evolving now, but we're just at the beginning of using data, right? And so it's something that really pushing on. It's all about data. That's my favorite thing to say now. It's all about data, right? So you really got to think about data, which is what we'll be doing today. And then what we're moving into, and we're really early in this, is AI enhanced selling. Now, a lot of the products you can get today have AI built into it already, so you don't have to be a data scientist or a developer to use AI. And there are a lot of products out that you can buy off the shelf that have AI built into it. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But this idea of AI being somewhere in the future that I need to think about later is not true, right? AI enhanced selling is happening today. The reason Amazon has surpassed and become such a large company is because of their early focus on data and now their early adoption of AI. That's what springboarded them beyond everybody else, because there are thousands of online retail stores, right, shopping avenues, but they're the ones that really exploit the data to the full extent. And we'll talk a little bit about that as we go on. All right, so it's a differentiator right now. It is the thing that is going to put you ahead of your competition. And that's all there is to it. So you have to really focus on what data you have, what data do I need to collect, and how do I use that data, right, to beat the competition. Make sense? Right? All right. I see this all the time. Typical dashboard, right? And it's good, right? You need dashboards. You need to know where you're at, you know, in your process. Even if it's marketing, sales, whatever. What's the outcome of what we're doing, right? Sales goals happen early on in the sales life cycle. So what I'm talking about is moving these analytics, moving this earlier in your sales life cycle. We'll talk about some really specific ways to do that, right? That you can use today. But start thinking about your life cycle, how your sales cycle works, and then start thinking about how the data can help me fine-tune that as we go, beyond just the basic dashboard. People using dashboards now? Anyone have a dashboard that you guys probably do, right? Dashboards, right? So critical to business. And not to put that down, but to build on top of that. All right, so the other foundational element of this, and I can't stress this enough, we do this quite a bit with our clients, and that is mapping the customer journey. You'd be surprised. I was on a phone call today with the CEO in New York City with a very large nonprofit healthcare organization, if not $1 billion, close to $1 billion organization. And we were talking, and they have some issues that they're trying to get past, especially being a nonprofit that size, right? It has its own challenges. But they are busy trying to look at analytics and data, and he has never really looked at his organization as a client or a provider. He's never looked at their website. He never tried to call his own company to get help. He's never really experienced what his clientele and his customers experience, right? So we're big on really understanding what your customer journey map is, because without knowing your customer journey, you really can't build on that, right? You really have to know what their experience is like. So we take a little bit of a different approach on journey mapping. I get this all the time. I get a phone call. Oh, we want to buy a CRM solution, right? We like HubSpot or Salesforce, we want to get that in. And, well, what problem are you trying to solve? Well, it's a cool tool. We just need the tool. It's like, well, what's the business approach? What are your outcomes? What are your goals, right? So we always have to pull them back to, don't think about technology yet. Let's talk about your customer, right? Let's talk about their engagement. Let's find those problems and really see how technology can help. So we start with constituent, right? So who are the people you're serving? What's their goal when they engage with you? This is pre-prospecting. These are just kind of looking at what your constituents are. Individuals, groups, influencers, professionals. You have to start by identifying that, and that's our first step. We usually do this in a 1 day or a day and a half effort, and you can get a pretty good journey map of your customer experience with this. And then the next one is customer persona. You've all heard this. This is a very popular term right now. So what are the characteristics of your customer? Who are they? What are they like? What are their habits? Interesting, there's a company called, it's a startup I've worked a little bit with called Suma. Has anyone heard of Suma? Mm-hmm. Right? So they started with looking at placement, job placement, right? And they were doing it mainly for stay-at-home moms, right? Moms that elected to work from home, but wanted a job, right? They didn't want to stay at home, they wanted also a job. And so as they learned their customer and did their journey map of their customer, they discovered that there's a large population of stay-at-home moms with kids with special needs. Right? They elected to stay home with their child, special needs, took a lot of time, but they also wanted to work. They're highly professional people, right? So they really focused their customer, right, onto that constituency, right, and build a whole journey map around that specific clientele. So it's a really interesting story how once you start to explore that, you'll uncover a lot of different paths you can take with your potential customers. What we call scenario. So what are the top 2 or 3, 4 situations that bring customers to you, right? Why would they engage with you? What are their drivers? You can talk in terms of pain points or just maybe what they, commercial insurance. What brings them to you? Is it, liability protection? What is that? And really exploiting that. And you can get a lot of this off the top of your head, but dive a little deeper into that. Really try to figure out what it is. What's that impulse that brings them to you? Because you could say, oh, they just want insurance. Well, yeah, sure. But there's some motivation behind that, some experience that they're wanting to have. And finally is the journey. And this is critical because there's a lot of failure in this, and you guys have experienced with any company you work with, that you start to engage with the company and you run into trouble, right? You guys on IT service management, someone calls in with a problem. What's their experience like right out of the gate? What are those touch points? How are you reaching out to them, right? And once you start to understand this and understand the touch points, you start to begin to understand where the data is coming from. What are you collecting? If your main touch point is a website and that's where they go, then you really got to look at what am I collecting on the website? What's their experience when they engage with that, right? What are the problems? What's keeping them back? And then you can start to see, okay, we need to gather more analytics on, they're coming to the website, but they're not hanging out long. Or they do one click and then leave, right? And people in website and you guys in marketing understand this, right? But you can use this in all aspects. If they're calling on the phone, do they leave a voicemail? How soon do you call them back, right? All these kinds of data points you can collect and start to analyze and see how it's impacting your customer experience. Does that make sense so far? Any dissenters? Anyone disagree with that? Okay, all right, good, all right. So we try to always bring people up out of the quagmire of all the tools that are out there, because there are a lot in marketing, and try to start helping them map their journey with their customers.
Hey Dan.
Yeah.
Would you say it's okay to have a variety of personas?
Absolutely.
Or am I supposed to pick one that I'm really focused on?
I'd pick your leading one and start with that, but you'll have multiple personas, right? Especially after you do the first one, you'll find that, well, this is really too broad, so you'll narrow it, right? And so you have multiple personas. And each one may have a different path, right? They may have a different experience, right? You may have use a stay-at-home mom analogy that shops, not for you, but shops online, right? But you may have another that's male that wants to go into a brick and mortar, right? And if you only do online, you realize, well, I'm missing this whole opportunity because we don't have a brick and mortar solution, right? So once you start with one and really narrow, but make it really focused, and then you'll see that you'll have others that will create from that. But usually what happens when there's only one persona is it's too general, right? They didn't dive deep enough into that persona.
Dan, I have a thought here really quick to help you. I used to help guide this type of exercise. Brittany and I, we did this at Big Wing for our clients for digital marketing efforts that we then would execute for them. I would encourage you, if you haven't done this before, create buckets. So for example, I had a higher ed client at one point in time that we worked on together. And so one of their buckets was, different constituency groups. Parents, because you're sort of recruiting the parent for their kid to also come to school, right? And so the parents are a group, students are a group, and then there can be categories underneath that, and how you effectively sell or market to them can be a little bit different. So I would start with your high-level buckets first and see who fits in each bucket, and then create a persona for each. But ultimately, to your question, decide the one or two buckets that you want to market to first.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, so sales cycle, and of course this is the most basic sales cycle on earth, right? But everybody does this, right? They find a lead, they connect, qualify it, right? They may present, we'll try to close the deal, right? Nurture all that. So you can start with this sales cycle, but what does your sales cycle look like, and how is it unique to your business? So you can take this and you can dive a little further, a little deeper into it. How do you find leads? And break that process down. So let's say that's your challenge, right? And as you go through this and start to define how you do each one of those, you'll see that areas where, yeah, that's my bottleneck. That's what's holding me back. I'm just not getting enough people calling me back, right? Or they're calling me back and they're really interested. I'm not getting enough meetings, right? We've all been through this, right? But if you can start to narrow that down, right, and really understand that, along with your personas, right? You're starting to build a picture. You're starting to build a game plan, right? And this idea of the game plan, when you put those two together, is that each step you have a game plan, right, that you're going to follow, depending on where you are in your life cycle and the persona you're dealing with. That's why it's so important to build these foundations first, and then you can figure out, what tools and how you're going to fine-tune it and execute on it. But we'll be talking on the first one about prospecting, because I hear that a lot, right? And how analytics works behind prospect. But start to look at how you do your life cycle for sales, and how that impacts your constituents, your personas. Okay, so we're going to do an exercise. Right, DLC. Now, it's a networking thing, right? We're networking here. So I urge you, if you want to, if you're comfortable, work on it alongside with someone or team up in small groups. Move around. If you heard somebody that does something similar to you, feel free to get up and sit by them. And I know we got some extra chairs around. It's a little tight, but well, I urge you to work with somebody on doing this exercise. So feel free to move around or work together with the person next to you. I'm good with that. Couple, three. Yeah, great.
With my sellers, their challenge is whether they should hold and just buy secondary or just go ahead, sell and buy secondary.
That's good. I like the detail. Yeah.
Now, did I say that's the problem we're trying to solve? Yeah, that's the problem. Okay, and with that, for home buyers, they get, antsy when they got credit challenges. They don't want to complete the process because they're already frustrated it's bad and they're trying to get their big goal. The best way to engage with them is either over the phone or a Zoom call. And where the problem, my skill is number 3, is getting to where they're qualified to do what they need to do to make that decision to execute.
Okay. Good. That's good. I like that detail.
You're welcome.
Let's Trevor. Yeah. Well done. It's a good team.
So you guys want to follow
Good
that
team.
one?
Yeah.
Yes, we do.
All right.
You're really good, aren't you?
You're a good team. You guys got to team up some more. Go ahead. Yeah, you did.
Brad actually did it. I
You did
disagree.
it. Yeah.
So our customer, we're looking for a small to medium business, 5 or more machines, computers.
Okay.
IT company, right? We're not industry specific. We're kind of looking for specific situations within the customers.
I like that.
The problem we're trying to solve is to help them maintain their business, keep their business functioning without having the technology issues that come with that. We want them to be able to continue their business with their technology being almost an afterthought.
Yeah.
Right?
Good. That's a good takeaway. I like that.
Engaging the customers. My company has a very strong belief that it's personal relationships. We were talking about as we went through, the 1980s model of a personal relationship really is what we still kind of prefer.
Yeah.
We want to know.
Everybody wants to get there, and this by no means means that that's done. That's still the foundation, right? You got to have that relationship.
And then the problem in our sales cycle, there's lots of things to this. I won't take too much time on it, but it is getting out of the gate. We are stuck in the starting gate.
Okay.
Lead generation, getting to more people, making more conversations, building that 1980s personal relationship.
Yeah, but that's you got a good start on rethinking how you approach potential customers, right? And start orienting towards that. So that's a great start. One more? Anyone else want to share? Yeah, we can clap. Yeah, that's good. All good. Anyone else want to share?
I will.
Okay.
Who our customer, everybody needs insurance. So we walk into a room and there's 100 customers.
Yeah.
We're much like Brandon's helped me trying to break out of this 1980s version of Brad, but it's relationship based. And there's the good and the challenges in that. The good is you got a 90% retention rate in an industry that's averages 60%. But getting them to sit down, that's our biggest challenge, is because our industry has commoditized itself. And it's all over the internet,
Absolutely.
If there's any conversation at all, send me a quote. Oh, you're the cheapest. What button do I hit? Ours, we look for the influencers, the competent planners that are going to invest a little bit of time and let us do what we do. That's, it's enjoyable to do it that way. You create those relationships, you create that trust and respect, but you also have bills to pay, and you need to, have those reoccurring new closings,
Yeah.
and sales, and
Yeah.
families and businesses.
Yeah.
But there's only 24 hours in a day.
That's right. Yeah. And the commodity part is, you give up some of the relationship stuff for bigger numbers, kind of widening that top of your pipeline. But yeah, that's good. And I think that there might be, if you break down, well, everybody wants to buy insurance, right? If you break that down to the next layer of like, how do they want to buy insurance? Like everyone in this room wants to buy insurance, but half of them may want to buy it one way, the other half maybe another. So you got now 2 personas of buying insurance. And then of those, right, hey, this is the way we're going to approach and engage these kinds of customers. This is the way we'll engage, so you can keep dicing it up. And so you don't have to change your whole way of doing business. You can change, depending on the constituent you're dealing with,
More
change that part of
and
it.
not instead.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. And so you pick those that are for that persona and they want to buy it online. So you head down that path. So, but that's great. Great way to start. I lost my clicker. I do this all the time. I do this all the time.
Great job.
Yeah, very good. Thank you. Excellent. As I did a presentation with, I think there are like 50 people in the room, and it was really quiet. So amazingly, 50 people, and I wasn't getting a lot of feedback. And I lost, I don't think it was my clear, I think it was my bottle of water. So, drinking water, and someone like was waving their hand, oh, awesome, a question. Finally someone's talking. And they said, you're drinking my bottle of water. I randomly picked up their bottle from which is kind of gross in a lot of ways. So,
To mark that for you?
yeah, I know, yeah. Just don't let me grab your bottle.
Carry a Sharpie at all times.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not sitting with it.
Okay, so Mr. Dan, by us doing this exercise, what is the takeaway that you're engaging for us to see from this? To think deeper on the level of how we're pursuing prospective prospects?
Yes,
Okay.
that's right. By understanding and narrowing that persona, that person you're going after, and you've already done that, great. I mean, there's a lot of stuff you could look at with people that are having credit problems, right? How do you approach that? If you're saying they're a hesitancy, that might be something you collect, right? So what's really, are they embarrassed? And if they're embarrassed, how can you orient like marketing or a sales pitch, getting over that embarrassment feeling, right? So as you drill down, you start to uncover ways to approach that particular persona, right?
Okay.
And you can start to collect data around that, right? And improve and adjust your approach by what's working and what isn't.
Okay.
So, and thank you for the segue, because integrate analytics into your sales process, right? I'm going to show a quick video. This is from the movie Moneyball, right? It's about the baseball manager, Billy Beane, that used analytics in it. So in this term, don't worry about the numbers, but think of the players like customers, right? And this just gives you kind of an outside and a little break from me talking, hearing my voice about how they approached analytics. So you get the idea. So the idea there is that they're using analytics and they're applying it to their persona. So they want this type. They need 854 runs. Here's how we're going to get it. We're going to go after these kinds of players, and here's the numbers that we need. Here's what we know about those players, and here's what we're going after. So you see how they take analytics all through their cycle of prospecting and getting those players in, right? And then, the numbers, the statistics behind it, it's built into so many tools these days, you don't need to really worry about that. All right, so let's talk about sales and data analytics. Right, so think of analytics as a way to build your game plan, maybe not for every sales call, but maybe for a group of sales calls or persona. You start off the week and go make 20 prospecting calls, right, whether they're cold or warm or whatever. And at the end of the week, and go measure how I did it and see what I need to change for the game plan for my next week or next month. Right, or sales presentations, however you want to look at it, right? But look at a way that you can measure your outcome, adjust, and then come back, and that's exactly what they did, right? They measured, they came up with stats, they measured, then they adjusted and changed for each new game plan. All right, so here's how it works. Okay, define the problem, and you did that a little bit already, right? Define a problem, right? There may be many, right? But you want to take one and define what the problem is that is. If it's the, getting people to sit down and talk to you, or whatever that problem is, define that problem well. And this will take a little effort, right? Define the fundamental statistics behind that problem. And I'm going to use your analogy again, that I love that about, they have credit problems, right? And they're nervous, right? That is a great analytic right there. So you may adjust your pitch so well that that's a cohort, a group you go after specifically, and that's all you do. But you have that down so you know what their triggers are, and you can, you may measure, what how bad their credit is, right? And so you find out that people within this credit range that are feeling the most uncomfortable, maybe that's a score, and you can start to tweak that and really fine-tune what kind of customer you're going after, right? So you can really apply it specifically, but it takes a little bit of thinking out based on your persona and the problems you identified, what kind of information you're going to gather, right? So you can fine-tune your game plan. And then decide on the outcome you want to achieve, right? So for you, you mentioned sitting down and having more conversations. Or maybe you pick a persona where we're going to try, this group that just wants to buy commodity, we're going to try something. We're going to try to put a website out there and see how easy we can make it for someone to buy. Maybe it's just an entry-level basic insurance policy, and we're going to test that out. We're going to see how many hits we get, and then we're going to adjust it after that and try it again next week or next month, right? So you can continue to, you got to start with what you want the result to be. We're going to try to get 10 people looking at our website. Maybe that's your first goal. And then what do I need to capture? If I do that, I want to know how many people are going to the site. I want to know what they're clicking on. I want to know how many phone calls we get, right? And I want to know if they call me and leave a message, when I call them back, did they respond? Those are all good stats to start tracking. And you can start to fine-tune based on how that's tracking over time. Does that make sense? I'm using you as an analogy, but.
I've been used before.
All right. And then you want to, and people forget this, they do the data and they look at it, but then they forget to go back and look and say, did it work? Did I get the outcome that I wanted, right? What's going wrong, right? Why isn't that working? And then it's just experimenting, right? It's just starting to experiment and adjust. But yeah, you want to start off, and we talked about this a little bit too, start off very focused with one, right? And you may have many, right? You brought that up too, Jeff. You may have many, but start with one, get really focused, make it really simple, then you can always build on that. Any questions?
So we need to start off with like a spreadsheet, like an Excel spreadsheet, and just put all that data in there.
Yeah.
Every day.
Yeah, it does not have to be complicated.
Okay.
Right? And just see that, with your persona at the top, and then start filling what are the things, that drill down on the pain point that they're having, right? Like you talked about. All right, and we're going to do that. So you get a chance. All right, it's the same thing. You can pair up with different people if you want. And it takes a while. What we're going to do is take that list that you have on the next page after the exercise, right? You'll see one with just these items on it, right? So what you're going to do is start to fill that out.
We stand together now.
Right? Sure. So you can split up different people if you want to work with somebody different. Probably won't get through all of it, but at least it'll get you start to thinking about taking the problem through to what kind of data do I need to start tracking. Right? Does that work?
Yes.
Questions? All right. Just to wrap this section up, you can see one of the biggest issues, right, and the hardest part is coming up with the stats. That just takes thinking and effort to do it. You guys had to go, they want to get more meetings, but then they backed up into their cycle and realized that they needed more prospecting, right? To get more prospecting, pick a persona. Okay, we're going to go after home health care providers in Oklahoma City. We're going to get a list of all the home health care provider companies. There are 400 of them. I just happen to know that. 400 of them. And we want, that's in Oklahoma as a whole. We want, or no, Tulsa and Oklahoma City Metro. So out of those 400, we want 20 people calling us back from our prospecting phone calls, right? Just a second. And so after that 20%, we're going to go after that 20, and we're going to do it through web marketing, right? So they do that, come back, they get 15 callbacks. Okay, pretty good, we want to up that, right? So they try something different in their website to do a little different marketing, but they're after that number, right? So that's how you start to build your data strategy around that. And you'll keep building on that as you go. But that's an example of how you start with those, creating those stats. But that is the hardest part, figuring out what that issue is in your life cycle, and then really drilling down into what stats we need to track to get where we want to go. That make sense?
Yes, sir.
Good.
Just lately, well, she was asking, where do we get that kind of information from?
You can buy lists, and I'll talk about that in a second.
We're heading in.
Yes, you are. And that's not hard. And that's not hard to do either. So, so I'm going to run through this quickly because I really want to get through this. So prospecting. These, we all know prospecting. You're going to use this as an example. A lot of hurdles with that. You can read this page, but I'm going to jump over here. So this is you can use industry data if you don't have data, right? Go out to your industry and find out what data you can buy, or there's a lot of free stuff. This is a study done by Inside Sales Labs, who does a lot of analytics work, and it's free. I think it's a white paper you can download, and you can start to incorporate some of those stats and start with those, and then adjust for your industry and your personas that you're dealing with. So I love these. So making a phone call, this is number of tries to get a hold of somebody. Again, this is just an example, right, in prospecting. But this is out of 479,000 cadences that they tracked. So the data source is really good, right? And here are the numbers they came up with. So number of tries only. This is not a time thing, just number of tries. Look what happens after 7 attempts of trying to get a hold of somebody. This is calling someone and they don't call you back, so you keep trying to get a hold of them. After 7 tries, you should give up. Move that person to the bottom of your list and move on to the next person on your contact list. That's a large drop out of a large data model, right? So you're dropping 63% after the 7th try. So part of your cycle, part of the way you do it, is you say, we're only going to try to get a hold of people 7 times. And you track that. Right? And if in your model you go, well, we're going 10, 12, 15 times, or we're going 1, 2, or 3 times, you go, no, we got to get it to 7. Right? And that's a stat you can measure, and then come back and see how well you performed at that. Right?
And just I want to make sure I understand that this is initial contact, 7 tries.
Yeah, you can call it cold call or warm call, but trying to get a hold of somebody, right? And usually where you don't have a relationship already, right? Yeah, initial prospecting. So after 7, another one. So this is duration. So okay, you're going to try 7 times. Well, over what period of time should I try that? Well, look what happens, right, on the days, right? So 6, 7, 8 days of trying to get a hold of them. Look how it drops off, right? So it looks like around 7, 8, 9 days is optimal, right, for over a period of time, right? So I'm trying this over a little over a week to get a hold of somebody, right? And it doesn't have to be Monday to Friday, right? Wednesday to the next Wednesday, let's say. Over that time frame, I'm trying to call, right? So 7, 8, 9 days after that, yeah, give up. Right? After 7 attempts to get a hold of it over a span of 8 days, and I'm not getting a call back, move on. You're wasting your time. You're better off going on to your next one, which may call you right back, right? So then,
Yeah, I think, go ahead.
Just to make sure I understand, you're talking about 7 attempts to call
over
Over a period of
8-9 days.
8-9 days. So basically, you're saying call them every day.
Yeah, next step. So thank you.
We're ahead of him.
No, that's, again, not hard to do. Not hard to do. So what's the duration between attempts? A day, not more, not less than 1 day, not more than 2 days. So you don't want to call them 7 times in a day, right? Or 6 times the first day, 5. Yeah.
I do sometimes, I call them morning, noon, and afternoon.
Yeah.
Then I wait 2 days and do it again.
So the stats show that you should try a day, no less than a day, and no more than 2 days between sales attempts. Now, again, yeah, it doesn't work out exactly, but is it a 24 hours or 48? Don't get hung up on that, but just try to give that kind of gap between your attempts. 7 tries over 9 days with somewhere a day or so between your attempts. And you can actually start to, this is a cool thing, you can actually start to measure that.
I think it also has to do with your widget, too.
Your what?
Your widget.
Oh, yeah, it does. And that's why this is across all industries. So, yeah, this is not the Bible, right? Start with this if you're not sure, and then adjust for your industry and your personas. That's why it's so important, right? So if you have people that, here's our, doctors or something that have weird hours, yeah, that may not work for you, but you try it and you adjust, measure, right, and make it your own for the ones you're reaching out to. But if you don't know where to start, this is a good place to kick it off. Right, so outreach,
Sorry.
go ahead. No problem.
The stats and stuff you just showed, the master, that is a free reference you mentioned?
Yes. Yeah. So you can go and download that white paper. It's got a bunch of stuff on it. I just picked some of the more intriguing stats. And there are a lot of other sources, probably sources in your industry as well, they can call on to get these kinds of stats. So how do I get a hold of them? Stats show, and the chart's really convoluted, so I just threw up the result. Stats show you should have 3, at least, well, optimum is 3 ways to try to get a hold of them. So pick 3. Everyone will probably do calling and voicemail. Everyone will probably do email, but you should have a 3rd outreach method. Now, trending right now, and you marketing people know this, LinkedIn is huge. And there are so many research papers on using LinkedIn. The email versus in-mail, which is the LinkedIn mail service, the numbers are ridiculous. I mean, and I've experienced this myself. I'll send someone an email, may or may not get a reply. I'll do an in-mail through LinkedIn. Man, within a day they respond. It's just the mindset of LinkedIn right now. The other is video. I worked with a client, pretty big company, out of the Northeast. And what they switch to is when they do a proposal, they do a video and send you a link. So you go to the link and say, yeah, thanks, here's the link to your proposal, right, for our product. And it gets on, and the salesperson, the CEO is going, hey, really appreciate you guys reaching out and allowing us to submit a proposal. Here are the pain points that we're solving. If you see, if you scroll down, you'll see the pricing, our pricing guide. If you have any questions, absolutely call me, and his number shows up on the video. Or people embedding videos in their emails, prospecting emails, right? And you see more video. You've done some videos on LinkedIn. They're really good. So try to start incorporating video, because the stats show that video and LinkedIn are really trending outreach avenues right now.
So just to clarify on this, the outreach that you're talking about for LinkedIn and social media is not an actual social media campaign. It truly is a direct message
That's right.
to an individual.
Thank you.
Business.
This is direct.
Hey,
yeah.
This is Kit with Better Business Bureau. I'm trying to reach you because we're talking about blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, this is direct engagement, not campaign. Yeah.
So just to piggyback off of that, if I post on LinkedIn, a text-based post, I'll get 100 views, and I have 500 plus connections. If I do a video, I get 300 to 400 views of that video.
Oh, yeah.
Of 3 seconds or longer.
Well,
It's crazy.
Boost video over.
Yeah.
Native video, a link to a YouTube.
That's right. You got to do, sorry, I just pushed my mic up. Yeah, exactly right. Personalize. Personalization, we all know is really big right now. So the more you can personalize, the better. So the fact that you do your own videos is big. right? That's the way to go. So feel free, start experimenting with doing your own video. Shoot a video, 30 seconds, right? Well, marketing people know better than I do, but a really brief, targeted, informative, content-rich information that people can take away and use. So urge you to do that. So what I want to talk quickly, and notice I have it at the end, is technology, right? So build your persona, right? Build your customer journey map. Create that. Build that foundation. Understand what kind of data you're dealing with and need to collect, right? Do that first. Understand that. Experiment. Then, after all that, then figure out what tools you need or how to better use the tools you have, right? CRM, customer relationship management, has an adoption rate within organizations of 30%. Right? That's because they go out and buy it, they install it, and no one uses it. And the reason they do that is that they didn't start in the beginning, which is, what problems are we trying to solve, right? And we run into this all the time, right? So we always back them up. What's their customer engagement? What problems are you trying to solve? Right, and talk about this. So I'm going to use Salesforce as an example just because they're now the, fourth largest software company in the world, specializing in CRM, customer relationship management tools. So these are the components in Salesforce around data and data analytics, and they all have them. There are 1,500 common sales CRM tools out on the market, so you got your choice. Reporting and dashboards, data management, right? And it's all built in. It's all point and click, right? It's built for an administrator, not for an IT. Sorry, IT people. Workflow and process builder, right? So you can start to build workflows. So you guys could have a workflow of how your prospecting goes, build in here, and at each milestone, you capture the analytics. How many calls did we make today? What was the response to those calls? And at the end of the week, you have a nice little start of an analytic model, right? And then they have built-in analytics tools, so you don't have to worry about all the being a statistician to do that. And then, what's the other? I can't remember. Salesforce is Einstein. They have Einstein, which is built-in AI, which will start to interrogate your data for you and start to give you predictive and prescriptive analytics around that. Hey, these are 5 people you haven't called and look like you are trying to call everybody every other day. It's pretty cool. Yeah, so you don't have to be an AI guru to start using some of those capabilities. So if you want to get started with whatever CRM tool, whatever tool you're using, in Salesforce, look at a report. Just build a report. You got, like your examples, you could build a report right away on, I'm going to start tracking my calls, even if it's in a spreadsheet, and then the result of that call, right, given a certain cadence, and how do I perform? How many callbacks am I getting? Right? And then dashboard, you can create some really simple dashboards to help measure that. And then it has a real simple thing of uploading a spreadsheet. So if you build a spreadsheet like you talked about, real simple way to just load that in, just crunches all your data. So you can start throwing in all this data you're collecting into some of these tools. And it's a good holding tank for that.